Good evening. Welcome to Live United. Living United, where we have an opportunity to see all the great work that's going on here in the Monadnock region. And today I have a special guest joining me, Cameron Tees, who works with the United Way along with me. And Cam's going to be talking with us about the 2016 campaign and the workplace campaign that's going on. But Cam joins us as the Resource Development Director from the United Way. And I really want to highlight, Cam, some of the great work that goes on through this because, you know, even before I came to the United Way, I did not have any sense of the complexity that is involved with running this campaign in the Monadnock region that does all these things we talk about when we live united and become part of changing the community out there. So I'm going to have you actually walk us through what does a campaign involve each year, and then what goes on outside of that workplace campaign. You know, there's sort of this small window where, you know, it's very visible, but there is work going on year-round. So let's talk first about the 2016 goal. So I'll let you share that with the community.
Okay, Kelly, thank you. Yes, our goal this year is $2,019,912. That is probably about 3% increase over what we actually raised last year. As you know, we did not hit our goal last year, although we exceeded $2 million, and we're very proud of that. But the goal is based on the allocations committee getting together and looking at the requests coming in from the different programs. This year we're funding about 50 programs, and each year these programs have to show the allocations committee what they're doing, what they've accomplished, what their goals are, how they collaborate. So that's why the goal was $2,019,912. It's not a nice even number because it's the result of that allocations process.
And I really want to clarify for the community that that money that is raised is around the need that exists out there. And it in no way addresses 100% of that need. When the agencies and programs come to us, they're coming for a portion of what they need to best serve our citizens here in the Monadnock region. And it's a portion. So when we don't reach goal, when we don't hit that $2 million plus target, the impact is substantial, and I hope people are reminded of that because there could be cuts coming into those programs where they may not be getting all the resources they need from other locations. So it becomes even more incumbent here on our local level to make sure we reach our goal. And I say our goal because it's not a United Way goal. It is a goal for the community to embrace and to really feel like, again, that they're part of the change that's going on there and they're part of Living United. And that's part of our theme this year.
That's right. You covered a lot of things there. I'd like to talk a little bit about the needs, what you started out with in terms of $2 million is a lot of money, and for our region to raise $2 million is amazing.
Absolutely.
And so we're very grateful. But and we say that we're meeting the needs. That's what that goal is based on. But as you pointed out, we're not meeting all the needs. We're meeting needs that are specifically identified by our programs and that really resonate with us in terms of really being worthwhile, whether it be child care or whether it be housing for people and roofs over their heads, or food, or just the development of children in a way that they'll be successful. So those needs have been identified, and the agencies and their programs have requested from the United Way a significant amount of money, but it's not covering all their needs by any sense. But it is, as you said, I mean, some of these programs would not be in existence without the United Way support.
And the thing that I really want to acknowledge here is that the programs that the portion of the population that they're trying to serve with United Way dollars is some of our most vulnerable population. You know, we just have data that we've collected for the first half of 2015, and we can see that over 85% of the population being reached through the funding resources that you, our audience, give through the United Way to these programs, 85% of that is going to our most vulnerable populations who could not afford the things you're talking about, whether it's housing, you know, shelter is so critical, violence prevention, senior services, an adult daycare, child care, just a number of things that serve all age groups. And we can see that we are impacting 0+, and it goes all the way up to 65+, that we're reaching audiences that are earning less than $25,000 a year, the greatest portion of them. So our most vulnerable populations in need, and it doesn't mean we're meeting all the services, but that we, through these resources that are generated during the campaign, have an opportunity to support that vulnerable population and do it in a way that is exciting too. Because I want to talk about the campaign. The workplace campaign is perhaps the, I don't know what a good word for it is, but the you know.
The workplace campaign is a significant part of us raising $2 million. And historically, the United Way has relied heavily on workplace campaigns. That's still the case, although we're going to many other sources as well. But we're very grateful for the employees or the employers and their employees that give through payroll deduction through their workplace.
And I'm not sure the public really understands how a campaign is structured and the number of volunteers that come in and are part of this and the different roles they take on. So, you know, we have Beth this year as our wonderful
General Campaign
Chair, but it's not just Beth.
No, and I think that's one of the beauties of our region. We still have such a solid, strong group of volunteers that are part of our campaign, and we have for years. But as the world becomes more difficult or complex, or people's schedules become more demanding, we're seeing countrywide fewer and fewer volunteers in United Way campaigns or in the community in general. And I think that's one of the blessings and the real strengths that we have in the Monadnock region. We still have hundreds of volunteers that will be part of this Live United campaign. And I think that you mentioned the Live United as the campaign theme. I think that our volunteers are going to be, and hopefully the whole community, really excited and empowered by such a basic message as Live United. It's the United Way Worldwide slogan, and we have adapted it. We still have our unique aspects of the Monadnock region, but we're part of the larger picture. And Live United is resonating countrywide and actually worldwide. So I think these hundreds of volunteers, when we have our kickoff on September 10th at the Keene Country Club, I think we'll see another demonstration, because we've had feedback already how Live United is resonating and means so much. There's also an aspect of the campaign theme after Live United as far as being part of the change. We can change lives, be part of the change. So there's all kinds of ideas that are floating around in terms of how to have fun campaigns with regard to the basic be united, be part of the change, like a jar. Guess how much change is in it, but.
Oh, that's great. You know, I do want to really bring attention to the fact that the campaign's fun. And when you volunteer for the campaign, we often hear that people are passionate about this, it's making a real difference in people's lives, but they also really enjoy doing the work. They get to socially connect with other volunteers from a variety of backgrounds, different businesses, different nonprofits, government, just a whole, retirees, just a whole different group. And it really does take on a life of its own.
Well, I can attest to what you're saying. I was a volunteer for a number of years before becoming part of the United Way staff a year ago. And the people that I met over the years, both as fellow volunteers in the various companies, both that I worked at and had a lot of support for the United Way as my employer supporting me participating, but also other companies and the agencies, the people that I've met in the different agencies. I have to tell you, Kelly, I think that's kind of the backbone of could be my life in terms of those relationships and those the feeling that you get when you work with people, having fun, but also doing it because you want to make a difference and you want to be part of the change. That over 30 years has really become like a major part of my life, and why when I was ready to retire, I didn't retire, but I did something closer to my heart by coming to the United Way.
And, you know, that's what I was just saying, is that, you know, we find things that we're passionate about, and to be able to have that sense of enjoyment and connection with other people just is such a great bonus. How can people still be involved with the 2016 campaign? You just mentioned that the kickoff is coming up on September 10th.
Right.
But it's not too late.
Oh, no. Actually, Beth Truman, our general campaign chair, and we're thrilled to have her as our volunteer leader of the campaign, has been recruiting a super group of people to be in her campaign cabinet. And as you know, but there are 10 or 11 divisions, everything from professional to construction to community to the towns. Because we cover the whole Monadnock region, and that includes western Hillsborough County. So there's 36 towns that are part of this campaign. Beth has been recruiting division chairs who turn around and recruit in each of those areas team captains and ambassadors to go out and actually make the ask. And we'll have, by the time, and we're still recruiting for some of those team captain positions. She has her division chairs. So by the time we have kickoff next week, we'll have 100 people that are directly involved in her campaign cabinet, whether it be communications, we've worked on a video, as you know, whether it be pace-setter companies. We have 14 companies that have been running their campaigns starting in August, so that when we have our kickoff next week, we can report their results. Leadership Giving, we have a whole group of folks under the chair of Cheryl Belair doing Leadership Giving. Each of those areas has its own hierarchy, and volunteers are the backbone of it.
So I'm going to have you break it down a little bit more, because I'm sitting here and I can remember when I first came on board with the United Way, I was like, campaign cabinets and, you know, general campaign managers. Oh my God, this sounds like you've got to be like a Democrat, Republican, or a liberal and know how to deal with, you know, politicians and everything else. And it's not that. It's about being a good neighbor. It's about being a good family member. It's about caring about our community. And there's so many ways to contribute. So we have the general campaign chair, Beth Truman, but we also this year have Laura over on the Hillsborough side working alongside Beth.
Right.
So, you know, I want to acknowledge that, because we really have two strong women in leadership roles.
Yes, Laura Gingras at Monadnock Community Hospital is the special assistant to Beth to focus on the Eastern Division, as we call it. In the late 80s, the United Way took on western Hillsborough County and Peterborough. And I remember at that time, Chris Flynn from Peterborough Savings Bank was a co-chair of the campaign that year. Over the years since then, We have had one chair representing the whole region. However, we really felt this year, and Beth felt this year, that to give the eastern part of the region really the attention that we've been trying to give it, really somebody that was well known there and well respected to be the leader for that part of the campaign would be helpful. So we're very grateful. Laura is very involved in development work and community work throughout the Peterborough area and the eastern part of the region. We're meeting with her. We've been meeting with her regularly over the summer, trying to make sure that all the aspects of our campaign show everyone that it's not Keene-centric, it's not Peterborough-centric, it's the Monadnock region.
And that's a great message to be getting out there. Then these two, the co-chairs there, then have a team that works with them. You call them a campaign cabinet.
Right.
They help provide leadership in different areas of focus out in the community.
Right.
And that also includes getting out to our towns and making sure we have towns taken care of, that we have, you know, the construction division. There's just a number of them. So we have that. We also have loaned employees that come in from businesses that dedicate an employee to being a volunteer during the campaign. And they take on different sectors of the community and reaching out to them and connecting to them and getting them involved in the campaign. And they're kind of the cheerleaders in some way, aren't they?
The loaned employees are very important to our campaign. That program started in the early 80s. I think Markham at the time, has been giving of their resources since the early 80s. I remember Joe Bowdy, I think, who was president then, was a big part of getting that started. But this year there are 10 different organizations that have contributed loaned employees. CNS, we're very grateful to. ES3, part of the CNS family. Savings Bank of Walpole, Clark Mortensen Insurance, Markham Homage. The City of Keene, Southwestern Community Services, and I'll think of the others, and I'm going to mention them. I'm going to fit them in somehow.
Well, and you know, what I love about what you just mentioned, it's government, it's nonprofits, it's business. It's about the whole community coming together to really support this campaign, whether it's through loaned employees being dedicated to this, or, you know, people just volunteering. We have a number of people who have retired out and who have been either donors or somehow always being involved in that, being part of that change that you're talking about in our community.
Right. We're all trying to figure out how to resonate, if you will, with millennials, and we're in that process. However, the core of our donors right now are still the folks that have been part of the United Way for a lot of years. So it's a balancing act. A large number of our leadership givers are folks that are retired and have the wherewithal to, they've been supportive for years and they have the wherewithal to continue. But our challenge is to have those folks be examples, be mentors, and show the next generation what it means to be not just involved with the United Way, but community involvement. I know when I came to the Monadnock region, and I worked for Peerless Insurance, now Liberty, back in the 1980s, it was folks, the leaders at Peerless, that encouraged me to become involved in the community. Joe Youngs, Bob Pine before Joe, people that made a big difference in my life, both professionally and to set the example of community involvement, George Douglas. And then at Markham Homage, of course, I had many examples, such as Joe and Bowdy and David Putnam, and Tom and Jim Putnam, Jeff Miller, all folks that I had the pleasure of knowing and really learning from in terms of the importance of business, being part of the community and giving back to the community. And I think that with our millennials, that's one thing that still will resonate with them, but in other words, their place of employment. But I think, and it is, I mean, we have some strong companies still involved, but more and more, the companies don't have the same bandwidth in some cases to provide their employees like they used to, whether it be loaned employees or whether it be volunteers. And the challenge to me is both reaching out to companies and trying to show the value of that community involvement for those that aren't doing it to the same degree or haven't. The win-win, both in terms of their employees' development, in terms of their own presence in the community, the esprit de corps of their companies by being involved. That's a big challenge. But thank goodness we have a lot of people from the companies that are retirees that are still supporting us. And we're trying to find ways, again, to have them mentor and be examples for the next generation.
And you know, what's interesting is this next generation does like to give through service. And, you know, capturing that. And, you know, both you and I were fortunate on Saturday to be out there seeing that in action with Keene State College's Community Service Day with all of its freshmen coming through.
Yes.
And, you know, I was there at 7 in the morning watching them, you know, ship out to work on projects throughout the Monadnock region. And what a great initiative. And, you know, we have opportunities like that for them to volunteer. But being part of the campaign and really learning those inner workings of that. And, you know, it's also a great opportunity to make social connections, work connections, and to really feel that sense of community, I think.
Yes.
You know, for me, that is the beauty of it. To feel such a part of something that makes such a difference in people's lives. And I really want to, you know, talk about what kind of difference it is making in people's lives. You've seen it for years now, the kinds of difference it makes in people's lives. You know, we're much better now at really looking at what is the meaning, what is the impact behind all of this? And, you know, we're reaching those vulnerable populations, we're reaching the different age groups. We've provided a tremendous amount of service, even in the first 6 months of 2015. And to think that 1 in 4 people are being touched by a service here in the Monadnock region, that's amazing to think about. And it's through these donor dollars, through these workplace campaigns, through a lot of the initiatives going on out there. So it's so important to volunteer. It's so important to give. I really, really, you know, want to highlight that because I think people think, oh, you know, I can give directly to that. When they're giving through the United Way, they're supporting 50 different programs out there that are really kind of a web that just is connected and supporting all citizens here in the Monadnock region.
Yes. So, Keene State, thank you for mentioning Keene State, because that Community Service Day on Saturday and getting a chance to see some of the freshmen, virtually their first few days at college, getting out there in the community, and then having a chance to talk to some of them when they came back and asking their impressions and how it went. I couldn't help but think, I wish that I had done that in Western Pennsylvania, where I went to college in a small college town. If I had gotten involved in the community from day one, I think maybe it wouldn't have taken me till I got into my 30s and I came up and worked in the Monadnock region to understand. So, and Keene State also has both an employee and a student as loaned employees.
Right.
So,
Right.
thank you for mentioning that. In terms of the impact of the United Way or the partner agencies and their programs, the data that's being collected through your work and the work of our collective impact initiative, if you will, I know is making a difference in terms of being able to show our donors the measurable results, and also our agencies being appreciative. I mean, it's more work, and it's maybe putting numbers together in ways that they wouldn't have been doing otherwise. But how many have told you, and I've heard it too, that because they're doing that, they're better able to demonstrate what they're accomplishing, where the donors' money is going, how it's making a difference, getting grants because they have this data. So I really, I know from the very beginning when I started to work at the United Way, and you and I found we're going to be colleagues, I said, that is cool, because if we can really focus on not just the fundraising and what we do, but on working with the agencies in terms of collective impact, in terms of how they can collaborate and go for and have measurable goals that make a difference, not just helping people today, but maybe helping to eliminate the root cause issues. How cool is that? So yes, the United Way raises $2 million for these 50 programs. And it does facilitate volunteering along with other agencies in the area, such as RSVP, that focuses on volunteers age 55 and over. We're dovetail with RSVP, and the United Way is also a conduit. I'm hoping we can get more Keene State and Antioch and
River Valley Community and Franklin Pierce yeah.
students involved, because it's not only going to enrich our community while they're here, but I think it's going to enrich their lives in terms of wherever they go. Hopefully more and more of them stay here, but it's going to enrich their lives in terms of giving back to and being part of the community and knowing what the rewards are of being part of a community wherever they go.
Yeah. And I do, you know, what you're talking about is it's more than just raising the dollar. It's really about how we each make a difference in the lives of each other here in the Monadnock region. And we may sometimes not be able to give that dollar, but we can give in other ways, whether that's through volunteering, being a good advocate. You know, last week we had the folks working with our vets on the show and really talking about how you can advocate for a vet, and sometimes it's just asking the question. And we can do that for each other. And sometimes we get so busy in our lives that I think we forget to do that. I do want to, you know, we're talking about the campaign. So we have a goal. The campaign will run for a time-limited period, and it runs in the workplace. People will get town mailings asking them to think about how they can give. And so that's kind of running. But there's other things going on that happen year-round. And one of the initiatives being developed is a women's leadership initiative. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So you and I, Kathy Harrington, our president, have known for some time that there are women's leadership councils associated with United Ways throughout the country. And I know we were excited by the concept of the power of a group of women getting together and to help the community, and also to know more about the United Way and have synergy with who they are as mothers, as community members, as just women that want to make a difference. So we mentioned this to Beth Truman, our campaign chair, when she was recruited several months ago. And it's one of the cornerstones of this year's campaign. Now, when we do start a Women's Leadership Council, which she is dedicated to, and she's actually identified a group like 50 or 60 women already to come to an introductory meeting to talk about it and help shape it. It's not just it's actually a long-range type thing. It could benefit this year's campaign. I can't help but think it would, just by virtue of the fact that these women would be committed to learning more about the United Way, and probably already are, in a lot of cases, United Way supporters. But can you imagine, I know you can, but the long run in terms of what this group could do? So even though it's still very conceptual, it's not conceptual in terms of knowing the power of what could be done. And I've looked at some women's leadership initiatives, such as in central Massachusetts. I think they're specifically working with middle school young women. And in Denver, I know they're raising money and supporting the United Way in a number of different initiatives, and so on. But we're going to do it the Monadnock Region way and start by getting a group of women together to talk about it.
And to figure out what do they want to really focus on and be part of changing out there in the Monadnock region. And of course, as a woman, I know the power of women, so we can make it happen,
I do too.
Cam. So
I have,
it's
my
exciting.
Mom, wife, daughter, everybody, you, powerful.
We haven't gotten you into a purple shirt yet, though, Cam. We're working on it. But
Did I mention my sister? No, no, purple. Maybe but I'm going to be part of it. Believe me. Anyway, you allow me to.
I know you will be. And your role as a resource development director does go way beyond the workplace campaign or the campaign that is so much in the public eye. And I think the work of the United Way is so much more. We've been kind of, tossing around different ways to communicate really the role of the United Way out there in the community. And, we've been laughing a little bit about some of the thermometer and maybe not having the thermometer have dollar signs on it anymore, because it's really about the people being served out there and how their lives are being changed. And we have these amazing outcome success stories that people come on the show and share, that we share publicly during the campaign. So how do people get involved? Like, how do they reach out and say, I either want to volunteer or I want to be a donor, and I don't have to be a politician to be part of this. I can contribute in just so many different ways. And they can also contribute one time if that's all they have time for.
Right. So there's a number of answers. That's a good question. So first of all, the United Way at 23 Center Street, where we've been since 1971, I think, with the American flag outside and some flowers and next to the courthouse. Stop in. We are always welcome. Catherine Richardson, the donor relations coordinator, will greet you, or Nikki Sauber, and we can talk with you. And two students from Keene State are going to be, hopefully, we're trying to arrange it now that they're back, coming in on Wednesday to talk to us about what they might do as ambassadors. Our website, MUW.org, provides more information about the United Way and how to contact us and the agencies that we support and the programs that we support and the impact that's being made through collective impact, and that's another way. Beth Truman is well known in the region, and thankfully she's our general campaign chair, following in the footsteps of many years of great campaign chairs. But John Round last year did a groundbreaking leadership exercise with us in new ways of thinking and campaigning. So I would say, call the office, go online, contact Beth or some of her cabinet. You gave me the opportunity earlier to talk more about the cabinet, and I hesitate because I know I miss people sometimes, but Sharon Greatbatch from S&S Painting is one of the town's division chairs. Bill Goodwin from Dublin does a great job year after year in terms of some towns over in the Peterborough area. Keith Tebow from Southwestern Community Services is a division chair for construction. Jessica O'Brien from Markham Homage has taken on the industrial division. She was a loaned employee last year. So right down the line, Allison Leduc is the special division chair. So we're very fortunate, and anybody that knows any of those folks can contact them as well. I mentioned Cheryl Belair, Leadership Giving, Special Assistants, and you mentioned Laura Gingrass.
Susan Newcomer.
Susan Newcomer in Leadership Giving.
Bob, yeah.
Bob Rooney from
Yeah.
last year is still involved.
Part of what I want to highlight is we have all these people this year that are part of it, but it's always worth asking in your workplace or your neighbor or family member if they know about how to be involved with the United Way, because I bet you anything they could find somebody they know that has been connected to the United Way in some way in giving to the community, in giving to the Monadnock region.
We've had some great volunteers in the office for the last few months helping Catherine with getting the mailings together and doing data entry and people that are retired or semi-retired or in between jobs that just said they wanted to be part of what we're doing, and they've been helping immeasurably. Earlier, we were talking about the power of women. One of the people I didn't mention, and it flashed up through my mind, is my granddaughter, Caitlin. When she's 11 now. When she was with us, they live in California, but when she was here last summer, she had a little project. She was 10 years old, and she cut out things out of the newspaper and made a little poster, and she was going to sell them at a fair or something, but she said, I had my choice of which one I wanted for my desk. So it's Days of Kindness, and I just have great admiration and hope for Caitlin, because I think she has it in her heart, and well, she has come to the United Way, so I'm trying to give her that exposure, but she inspired me by that.
We have a super generation of young people coming up, and
Yeah.
it's, it goes back to you talking about we need to engage them. We need to give them that opportunity, and the opportunity's there. People can reach out to the United Way, and it doesn't necessarily have to be serving as part of the campaign.
No.
Or because all of the partners that we work with, our partnership is around that volunteerism, is around that giving, and really bringing that all together. So it's through the United Way. You're not giving to the United Way, you're giving to the Monadnock region through the United Way.
Right. The United Way, without the partner agencies and the programs, the reason we're raising the money, we're actually the conduit and the resource, if you will, for those programs. We also do a lot more than just the fundraising. The collective impact, the collaboration, the leadership in the community, the recruiting of volunteers, the resource that we are for the agencies in terms of not just fundraising, but how they present themselves with communications, or it varies, but the United Way, which you've mentioned several times, but my spin on it in terms of what the United Way brings, people have many ways to give. There's many good causes, many legitimately good causes, and the United Way is not the only way. But I think our message, and the message that I think really will resonate, and then I respect people's decision to give to their church or to give to other agencies directly. But to me, the value of the United Way goes far beyond the $2 million that we raise. And if you talk to someone from an agency, for instance, or in the community, and ask them about the United Way, chances are they will talk about somebody that they know, a personal story. I have 4 agencies that help me or my family directly. So I think that is a very important part of the United Way, and a big part of this year's campaign, Live United, is personal stories. Personal stories of Beth herself, personal story of Cheryl Belair, personal story of Jeff Jerry, and others. And in fact, we've reached out to donors and asked them to send their stories, and for us to be able to use them year-round. So that's important, and those personal stories are very important. But what about I bet a lot of agencies would also say that we wouldn't have collected this data and looked at what we do in a new way had it not been for the allocations process. And some may say, the volunteers that you recruited or came through the United Way to help us, Or they may say, you know, the United Way is really helping younger people see the importance of philanthropy and helping to grow citizens. Or they may say, you know, that volunteer experience where we worked with Beth Truman or John Round or whatever, I'm staying in touch with them. I mean, there's other ways, there's so many different connections. United Way has brought us together and made us realize some of the power of the other things in our community. And those are our friendships and contacts that we're going to maintain. So
It's those unseen benefits to having, you know, this sort of collective group of people, volunteers, and the staff of the United Way, and then all of these partner agencies, and then all the donors out there that support it. You bring that together, the power is amazing. And now we're going to add a whole women's leadership initiative into that people can get involved with, that women out there, you really want to be part of making some change and starting from the grassroots ground level and deciding, you know, where do we as a group of women take that energy we have, that commitment, and direct it. Here's a great opportunity to do that. And again, they can reach out through Beth, they can reach out through Laura up at Monadnock Community Hospital. They can contact the United Way directly, or just walk in the door. And if you do want to contact the United Way, our number is 352-4209. You can also reach out to Cam, you can reach out to me, Kelly Steiner, and we're all, the nice thing at the United Way, we're all our first name at MUW.org. So I'm Kelly at MUW.org, Cameron at MUW.org, Kathy at MUW.org, Nikki, so you can reach out fairly easily.
could I drop a couple other names? Because
Sure.
these will be connections for some people too. The Loaned Employee Program this year, and he's done it for a number of years, Ken Ju headed that up. The Corporate Calls Program, reaching out to certain companies to try to explain the value added of maybe having a campaign there. Alan Stroshine at Liberty is heading that up. The pace setters, we have 14 pace setter companies this year. CNS set the pace back in May, but Dave Tarian from the Lansing Company did a super job with the pace setters this year. Badger Company just finished their campaign. We have a couple of our agencies, Southwestern Community Services and Home Health Care had super campaigns. Cheshire Oil, Clark Mortensen again. I mean, SNS, Sharon Greatbatch's company, a pace setter. Some really, we're hoping that come September 10th, that between the pace setters and the leadership givers, that there's early solicitations of leadership givers, mostly those that don't work for companies. But from that mailing, and then Cheryl Bellaire's team, you mentioned Susan Newcomer, Mike Rafferty being the other division chair, and then other division chairs for in-house campaigns are Mike Chelstowski. So we're hoping that come September 10th, we have a substantial, you know, last year we were 26% of goal on September 10th. We're hoping that we're shooting for doing even better to give our campaign just a super send-off.
And I really, I want to highlight that, you know, a lot of people are probably going, oh, they got the pace setters, they got 14 of them this year. Those are the people that give the campaign a jump start. And really that's the way to think of it. And that our leadership givers are also the folks that give a jump start. That doesn't preclude you if you are a business owner or you're a person who wants to donate. That's going on right through into next year, and that this money is what will fund all of these programs in 2016 and will make such a difference in people's lives. Now, if somebody's not currently doing a workplace campaign, they can again reach out to you or Catherine, and you're happy to help them set that up, support that happening in their workplace if they'd like to do that. And what defines a leadership giver? Because I think people, think, oh my gosh, that must mean I have to give a lot of money. But I'm a leadership giver.
Yes. Leadership giving started in the 80s at the Monadnock United Way. We call it the Grand Monadnock Repelling Team. In the mid-80s it was started. And it grew from about $100,000 with 30-some leadership givers to over 700 leadership givers who individually or as a couple have the wherewithal and the motivation to contribute $500 or more. And we do have some that are, it's a lot more, but we also have folks that are in, you'd be surprised, some of their jobs, yet they feel the United Way, even with as little as they might be making, that they feel the United Way is that important that they want to be a leadership giver.
Todd Craig was on my show last year during the campaign, and Todd, talked about lots of times people think it's going to hurt here in the pocket, but what it feels like here. And, that's always struck me. It's really stuck with me because I think people think, oh my gosh, I can't afford to give $500. But for me, I break it down into what I give a week, and through the workplace, a lot of workplace campaigns you can give through your paycheck. So when I give $10 to $12 out of my paycheck, I become a leadership giver. And you don't notice quite as much as writing a $500 check. So there's a way to give, and it doesn't have to be that. People can give what they can afford to give. And whether that's volunteering or giving through the pocket and feeling it in the heart, as Todd so eloquently put on the show. So, and the volunteers, like we said, are just so critical to this. People can also work with you on longer-term commitments to the United Way. And I think that's part of your role as the Resource Development Director, is people really thinking about how do I leave a legacy that continues to give to the Monadnock region. So there is that opportunity. I know you just did a workshop for folks. So one of the things we're really, as a United Way, trying to do is to be a value add out there in the community. Serving as a centralized fundraising and providing that capacity for a lot of organizations who could not do it on their own, a lot of our programs out there. But also being that convener, providing education, good information, and really communicating all the amazing resources we have here in the Monadnock region.
Wow. All true.
Thank God.
So we did have a planned giving seminar this past summer. Not a whole lot of folks came, but we've had an endowment since the 90s. And we're hoping to start, like you said, it's a continual process for a lot of people. And considering the Monadnock United Way in their planning for what's important to them in the future, definitely is an important part of my job and one that I hope to work on. But we do have an endowment, and the money is in the hands of the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation, so it's not like we have to wait if somebody. In fact, last year we had a very generous donor and family that she bequested a significant amount of money to us, and that's happened several times in most recent years. So I think people that do become, really see the United Way as more than just a fundraiser and what an important part of our community and their lives it has been, then it's kind of a natural thing to want their legacy to be intertwined in the legacy of the United Way.
I don't use this show a lot to promote the United Way. It's really more focused on all the great things that we're supporting and working with and the partners. And we work with so many partners that come on the show that we don't fund, but that are really part of that web that we're talking about out there in the community. So the United Way is an important part of that, and I think a connector for much of that. Any last thoughts about the 2016 campaign or the Women's Leadership Group? Anything that you really want the community to hear, Kim?
Thank you. So I would say that as you consider the Monadnock United Way in your giving plans, to look at the legacy of the United Way and the many people that have been involved over the years, and it was important to them, but also look at the United Way and certainly look at the people's lives who have been impacted and the people that you know and perhaps yourself that have been impacted and helped, such as myself, by the United Way programs. But also consider, if you would, the future and how the United Way is, as Kelly and I have talked about, much more than just fundraising. Still very important to us, and that broad breadth of programs to, as Kelly was saying, to help people in any place in their lives. That's very important. But I also think that the collective impact work, the work of trying to focus on issues that are will make the biggest difference, early childhood development being one that our board has selected, rightfully so, from the Community Needs Assessment of 2012, and there's others. But that folks consider the United Way as a way to be part of the change and to make a difference, and to actually become part of 5,000 donors, and we're looking to grow that, but 5,000 donors in the Monadnock region have deemed it important enough or making a difference enough to support us. And we're hoping to build on those 5,000 this year, but we also are hoping to also thank every one of them personally and ask if it's possible to consider an increase, because the needs, as Kelly said at the beginning, we're touching the ones that we feel will have the biggest impact in these programs, but there's needs that far exceed the $2 million.
And we do have an increase both in the need, and we have an increase in the requests coming in to support that need. And you know, I think to myself every morning when I come into work, I think, you know, almost 500,000 services in the first half of 2015 provided by these 50 programs, and over 20,000 people served by those services. That's in a 6-month period. I would guess we'll have 1 million services provided by the end of this year. And if you can imagine that service amount being provided here in 2015, and we know there's an increased need for 2016 already, I expect that it'll be even more. So it becomes even more important for each of us to think about how we stretch a little bit, whether it's by giving, by volunteering, by being an advocate for your neighbor, your family member, your friends out there. And you know, I want to remind you that that's what this show is about, that it's about being part of the change out there in the Monadnock region, whether it is through your giving, whether it is through your volunteering, or through the advocacy that you do. But it's so important for all of us, each and every one of us, to live united if we're really going to be part of the change and make a difference out there. Cam, I want to thank you for joining us. You are a wonderful person to work with, and it's an exciting year for this 2016 campaign. I love the theme. I love what I see people doing with it, because I think each of us can take it to heart. And we can each think about how we can be part of Living United. I want to thank you, audience, for joining us tonight, and remind you to give, to volunteer, to advocate. Thanks for being with us.